I woke to the sound of my own breath. Fast, shallow, like he'd been running in my sleep. The kitchen was quiet. The candle burned down to nothing but hardened wax. My plate sat untouched. Across from me, the chair was still empty. But I could feel him. Not in the room. Not in sight. But near. Always near. The blue dress clung to me, damp with sweat. My fingers worked clumsily at the buttons, tearing them open, desperate to get out of it. The fabric pulled at my feet. I stood there in nothing but trembling skin, staring at the chair that seemed to wait for its occupant. "I'm leaving," I whispered to no one. I packed again, faster this time. A bag, my car keys, the little money I had left. The air outside was cold, sharp against my face. My car coughed, then roared to life. I didn't look back at the house. I couldn't. The road stretched out ahead, dark and endless. Willow Creek shrank in my rearview mirror. For the first time in weeks, I almost felt free. But after an hour, I noticed something strange. The trees on either side of the road looked familiar. Too familiar. A sagging fence post. A leaning oak. A mailbox with faded paint. I slowed the car. My heart thudded in my chest. I knew this road. I pressed harder on the gas. The engine growled. Miles blurred by. But the landmarks only repeated. The sagging fence post. The leaning oak. The mailbox. Again. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. Another hour. Same stretch of road. Same shadows. Same silence. The needle on the gas gauge sank lower, lower, until the light came on. Panic clutched my chest. I gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. When the engine finally sputtered and died, I coasted to the side of the road. The silence that followed was worse than the dark. I got out. Cold wind bit into my skin. The night smelled of wet leaves and rust. My breath puffed in white clouds. And then I saw it. Up ahead, just beyond the bend, a sign. Weathered wood, barely standing. Old Creek Road. My knees nearly gave out. I was back where it started. I stumbled forward, the gravel crunching under my shoes. My car sat silent behind me, swallowed by the dark. Ahead, the road seemed to breathe, the shadows shifting like something alive. And then, from the trees, a voice. "Margaret." My blood froze. I turned. The man in the coat stood just beyond the tree line, his figure half swallowed by the dark. His eyes gleamed like the reflection of the candlelight I thought I'd left behind. "You can't leave," he said softly. "You were never meant to." I staggered back. "Stay away from me." But he stepped closer, slow, deliberate. His boots crunched against the gravel. "Do you know why the road brings you back?" he asked. I shook my head violently. "Because this is where it began. Because you belong to this place. To me." I turned and ran. Branches clawed at my arms as I stumbled through the trees. The ground was uneven, roots catching at my feet. My breath came ragged, tearing my throat. I don't know how long I ran before the woods opened up. And there it was. The orphanage. Half rotted, slumping against the trees like it had been waiting. Its broken window stared back at me like empty eyes. My legs trembled, but some fist pulled me closer. The door hung open, the brass key still glinting faintly in the lock. Inside, the air was heavy, thick with mildew. The photographs on the wall seemed to have multiplied. More children. More smiles. But the faces weren't strangers anymore. They were faces I knew. Sarah. Danielle. My parents. All smiling. All frozen. And at the center again me. But the girl in the new photograph was older. My age now. Standing in this exact spot. My vision blurred. Tears streaked down my face. My fingers dug into the wall as if I could hold myself steady against time itself unraveling. "Why are you doing this to me?" I sobbed. And then I heard it, a faint creak. I turned. One of the rusted bed frames had shifted. Its springs groaned. Someone was sitting there. A woman. Her hair grey, her eyes sunken, her dress simple and faded. She looked like she'd been waiting for me for years. "You came back," she whispered. I froze. My lips parted, but no sound came out. "You don't remember me," she said softly. "But I remember you." My knees weakened. "Who are you?" Her hands trembled as she lifted a small leather book from her lap. A journal. She pressed it against her chest like it was the only thing keeping her alive. "I was the caretaker," she said. "I watched over you children." I wrote it all down. I kept the records. They told me to burn them, but I couldn't, because I knew one day you'd need to know. She held the book out to me. My hands shook as I reached for it. The leather was cracked, the pages yellowed. On the cover, written in faded ink, Willow Creek Orphanage -1965. I opened it, my eyes scanning the spidery handwriting. And there, on the first page, was my name. Margaret. The letters blurred as I stared at the page. My name. Not scratched in later, not forced into someone else's story. Written in neat, steady ink like it had always belonged there. I flipped to the next page. Dates. Names. Notes about daily life in the orphanage. How many children. How many meals. What games they played in the yard. And then, an entry that made my skin crawl. Margaret. Arrived today. Special. He says she must not be separated. Promise she will be looked after. My hands trembled. What does this mean? I asked the old woman. Her lips pressed into a thin line. We were told you were different. That you were chosen? He came orphan, the man in the coat. He wasn't staff. Not really. But no one dared question him. I clutched the book tighter. Who is he? Her eyes darted to the shadows in the corners of the room. He's always been here. Longer than me. Longer than the orphanage itself. Some of the children whispered he was an angel. Others a devil. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a rasp. But he is not a man. Not in the way you think. The room tilted around me. My knees shook. I flipped further into the journal. More notes, more days, until another entry leapt from the page. Margaret does not sleep. She walks the halls. She talks to him when no one else is there. The others are afraid. I fear what she is becoming. My breath caught. That's not true, I whispered. That's not me. The woman's hand closed over mine, cold and bony. It was. You don't remember. But you will. The words pressed down on me like weights. I pulled away, clutching the journal to my chest. Suddenly, a sound ripped through the silence. Footsteps. Heavy, steady, echoing down the corridor. The woman's eyes went wide with terror. She pulled her hands into her lap and whispered, He's coming. I can't protect you anymore. The shadows shifted. A figure emerged at the far end of the room. The man in the coat. His face was clearer now, lines of age etched into his skin. But his eyes glowed with the same fire as always. Margaret, he said, his voice filling the orphanage. You found it, good. The woman's lips trembled. Leave her alone. He ignored her. His gaze locked on me. The journal was meant for you. It's your story. Your truth. I shook my head, backing away. No, this isn't mine. I had a family. A home. You had lies, he interrupted sharply. Fabricated memories. You begged me to take them away when they hurt too much. And I did. The walls around us creaked, groaned, as if the building itself was listening. The old woman whimpered, covering her face. Don't make her remember. She won't survive it. He took another step toward me, his shadow swallowing the floor. She has too. I clutched the journal tighter, flipping desperately through the pages. Near the back, another entry caught my eye. Darker ink, the handwriting jagged, frantic. The night Daniel came. Margaret screamed. Said he wanted to take her away. He fought the man in the coat. There was blood. Too much. Margaret was smiling. The journal slipped from my fingers and hit the floor with a dull thud. My breath tore from my lungs. No, I didn't. His hand reached out, steady, patient. You did, and you asked me to carry it for you. That's why you've stayed. That's why you've never left. My legs shook beneath me. My chest burned. I staggered back against the wall, my palms pressed flat against the peeling paint. I didn't kill him, I whispered. You held the knife, he said simply. But I guided your hand. That's what you wanted. To never be alone. Even in that moment, tears blurred my vision. My body shook with silent sobs. The old woman's voice trembled from the corner. You see now why you must leave this place? Before it takes you again. But the man's voice cut through her words like a blade. There is no leaving. Not anymore. She belongs here. With me. The walls groaned louder. The photographs shivered, slipping from their pins, fluttering to the floor one by one. Children's faces stared up at me from the dust. And then the room changed. The peeling paint smoothed into pale plaster. The broken beds became neat, orderly rows. The air smelled of soap and porridge. For a moment, the orphanage was alive again. Children's laughter echoed faintly down the hall, and I was no longer grown. I was small, a little girl, barefoot on the cold floor, clutching the man's hand as he led me past the beds. You see, his voice whispered, both inside my head and out loud, "You've always been mine." I tore my hand free, gasping, and the vision shattered. I was back in the crumbling ruin, the journal at my feet, the man looming over me. My body shook. My voice cracked. "What do you want from me?" His face softened, almost kind. "Only what you asked for me to stay." The candle in my memory guttered. Darkness pressed in around us. And then, his breath against my ear. "Tomorrow, Margaret, you come home." When I opened my eyes again, I was in my bed at home. The journal lay on the knitstand. The blue dress hung neatly from the chair. And on my pillow, a Polaroid. This one showed the orphanage, not as it was now, but as it had been in the vision. Bright, clean, filled with children. At the center of it all was me, smiling,